Have you guys heard of this new podcast called Spaced Out? They talk about Starship, and I think they might be even better than my channel. Just let's listen.
You might have heard a pretty wild fact recently. SpaceX's Starship needs this incredible amount of refueling, sometimes from like 10 or even 12 other starships just to get to the moon. When I first heard that, I thought, okay, hang on. Why so many launches? Didn't Apollo just, go? It feels a bit backward.
That's a fantastic observation, actually. And it really cuts right to the core of what makes modern spaceflight so different. What's truly revolutionary about Starship, especially its radical reusability and just the sheer scale of it, is how it completely flips the script compared to something like Apollo.
Right.
So our deep dive today is all about digging into that why this seemingly complex approach. And what could these huge leaps in tech actually mean for space, obviously, but maybe even surprisingly right here on Earth.
And to unpack all of that, we've pulled together a really interesting stack of sources for you today. We've got everything from, deep Reddit discussions where people are really crunching the numbers.
Yeah, some good stuff there.
To technical reports straight from SpaceX, and even those big picture company vision statements. Our mission, like always, is to sift through it all, pull out the most important nuggets, the key insights, and give you that aha moment, so you're well informed without getting, bogged down in all the details.
Exactly, cut through the noise.
So let's start with that basic question then. Why does Starship need this orbital pit stop, this celestial gas station?
I'm gonna stop it right there. Have you guys heard those voices before? Do those people sound familiar to you? Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they're not people. This is just a very quick example of what AI can do with the Google Notebook LM. There's a lot going on in the world of AI, and I'm pretty familiar with Grok and ChatGPT, but I just discovered this, and it's kind of freaking scary. So just to show you how it works, I typed in just SpaceX Starship as a prompt to research and learn more about Starship, which I already think I know a good amount, but I wanted to see what this could do. And part of the reason I'm telling you about this is because I thought it would be fun to listen to the podcast that it just generated in less than 5 minutes, which we just started to listen to it. I actually think it's pretty believable so far. I think that the tones and the pauses of the narrators, kind of sounds like real people. But I also wanted to let you know about this so that maybe you can introduce it into your own life or your own workflow, because this is not just meant for creators. You can use this tool for a study guide. You can use it to create a briefing doc. You can use it to create an FAQ, a timeline. This can be, applied for, all sorts of things. So I just thought that it would be fun to take a look at together. So I guess these are just the times that we're living in. And I, of course, don't like the idea that I could be replaced by AI, but I have to say some of what it's doing is very convincing and pretty good so far. This is the worst that this is going to be, and it's pretty dang good. So let's keep listening to it, see what it talks about.
What's so different?
Okay, so it really boils down to a fundamental challenge. A law of physics, often called quite dramatically the tyranny of the rocket equation.
Okay, sounds serious.
It is, in rocket science terms.
Yeah.
So imagine you want to send payload into space, let's say 10 tons. To lift that 10 tons, you need fuel, a lot of fuel.
Right.
But that fuel also has weight. So now you need more fuel just to lift the first batch of fuel in the payload.
I see where this is going.
Exactly. It creates this exponential problem. The more payload you add, the rocket size and fuel needed grows way, way faster, not just linearly.
So it's not like add a pound of payload, add 10 pounds of fuel. It's much worse.
Much worse. It snowballs incredibly fast. And here's the really mind-bending part, the bit that surprises most people. Nearly twice as much energy, what we call delta V, basically change in velocity is needed just to get a spacecraft into Earth orbit than it takes to travel all the way from Earth orbit to the moon combined.
Wow, twice as much energy just to get off Earth.
Yep, Earth's gravity well is just incredibly strong. You could say it's almost oppressive in its hold. Getting off our planet is by far the hardest part of any space journey.
Okay, that really puts it in perspective. So If Earth's gravity is such a monster, how did missions like Apollo manage it? How did they escape without this orbital refueling thing?
That's a great question, and it highlights the core difference in philosophy, really. Earlier missions, Apollo being the prime example, they got there using these enormous multi-stage rockets, think Saturn V, and they were almost entirely thrown away after just one use.
Disposable giants.
Pretty much. The Saturn V, it was rough.
Okay, wait. It is saying Saturn V. Okay, so that's not good. It's Saturn V. But so far, I mean, it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. I guess I want to know what you guys think. But I was able to generate this sort of podcast in just a matter of minutes. It's 17 minutes long. I don't see what would prevent people, particularly people without, integrity to really create content, from just generating a bunch of these all the time and creating, faceless channels, AI slop, although it's not really that sloppy, except for that one error right there with Saturn V.
Roughly the same size as the Starship Super Heavy stack is today. Huge rocket. But it got to the moon by shedding its 3 massive stages one by one as it went up.
Okay.
And because of that disposable design, it inherently limited how much they could actually carry to the moon's surface.
Yeah.
The Apollo lunar module, the lander itself, was actually quite small. Weighed about 16.5 tons.
16 and a half tons. And Starship's aiming for much more than that, right?
Vastly more. That's the whole point of the refueling. With orbital refueling, Starship is designed to deliver up to 150 tons of cargo to the moon.
150 tons.
Plus enough dry mass that's the ship itself without fuel and the fuel it needs to actually come home again.
Yeah.
So we're talking about rough numbers here, but around 100 times more cargo capacity to the moon than Saturn V could manage.
100 times.
Yeah. I mean, to give you a picture, one source describes Starship landing on the moon as being like landing a small apartment complex.
Okay.
Whereas the Apollo lander,
Yeah.
more like the size of a VW car.
That's a stark difference.
It really is. The Starship Human Landing System, the HLS version, is over 50 times larger in volume than the Apollo LM. And crucially, once it gets near the moon, Starship HLS needs a lot of delta V. It needs fuel for propulsive braking, using engines to slow down.
Instead of parachutes or atmosphere?
Exactly. The moon doesn't have much atmosphere. So braking, then the actual landing, and then taking off again from the moon to get back to lunar orbit, all of that requires a substantial amount of fuel, way more than Apollo needed for its little lander.
Thinking about Apollo, there's also the safety aspect. It feels like that has to play a bigger role now.
Absolutely.
I remember hearing that quote from astronaut Gene Cernan. Someone asked why we didn't just redo Apollo, and he basically laughed and said, because it's not safe.
He wasn't wrong. Apollo was incredibly risky.
Nearly every mission faced, potentially catastrophic problems. Is Starship designed differently with that in mind?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
That's a critical point. Starship is being designed to a much higher standard of safety and reliability. That inherently means more mass, more backup systems, stronger structures, redundancy.
And more mass means?
More fuel needed.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not just about getting there anymore. It's about getting there and back. Consistently, safely, repeatedly.
Okay, so we get the massive fuel need, rocket equation, huge payload increase, higher safety standards. It all adds up.
Yeah.
But that still leaves the big question, why accept the complexity, all those refueling launches? Why isn't that seen as a massive, maybe deal-breaking hurdle?
Right, and that's where the economics completely change the game. The answer is reusability. It's a principle that genuinely turns the whole thing on its head.
Reusability, okay.
Think of it like this. There's a great analogy in one of the sources we looked at. Imagine you want to fly from California to Australia. Option 1, charter a reusable Boeing 747 for, say, $500,000. Option 2, buy a small single-engine turboprop for maybe $1.5–2 million. It can't even reach Australia, and you have to throw it away after you use it once.
Well, obviously you'd charter the 747.
Exactly. And yet, for decades, spaceflight has been doing the equivalent of buying the throwaway plane. It's, as the source said, truly crazy that we build these sophisticated rockets and then crash them every time we fly.
So SpaceX is building the reusable 747 of space.
That's the goal. They're aiming to get the manufacturing cost of a single Starship down to a remarkable, maybe even unbelievable, $1 million per ship.
$1 million for a spaceship that big.
That's the target. And as of early 2024, they were apparently tracking towards a launch rate of once a week within about 12 months. Now compare that to NASA and ULA's Space Launch System, the SLS.
Right, the modern equivalent of Saturn V.
Saturn V, which, yeah, SLS hasn't launched since November 2022. I remember, I was there. Now, I want to show you another feature that is also very interesting. This is a beta feature for the Notebook LM by Google, but it's an interactive mode. So I'm going to show you how it works. So you click interactive mode, play audio, and then I'm going to click join.
Oh, hey, I think our listeners got something to say.
Hey, yeah, I was just curious, like, do you know when Flight 10, the next Starship launch, might actually be?
Hey, that's a great question. It's one of those things everyone's wondering about.
Yeah, the excitement around the launches is definitely palpable.
So Flight 10, that's the one we're tracking for a Super Heavy Booster 16 catch attempt.
It's a big milestone for them trying to catch the booster.
Now, previously, it was expected no earlier than June 29, 2025.
However, there was a bit of a setback.
Ship 36, which was part of that plan, exploded and was destroyed on June 19th during propellant loading.
That means they'll need a new ship for Flight 10.
So while there isn't a firm new date, it's definitely pushed back from that June 29th target.
SpaceX is all about rapid iteration, so they'll be working quickly.
But it won't be in the immediate future, that's for sure.
You know, it ties right into what we're about to talk about. It does.
You might have heard a pretty wild fact recently.
Yes.
SpaceX's Starship needs this incredible amount of refueling.
Yes.
So then it restarts. But overall, I think that it is one of the more convincing convincing things, or, you know, AIs that I've heard. I've been talking to Grok. I've been talking to ChatGPT, although I usually kind of write to ChatGPT. But, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's a very interesting time, not only as a creator, but also just as a human. I mean, this is something that I think we're better off embracing than fighting, because it is rapidly evolving, and I'm hoping that, you know, we can use it as an asset and something to help us make our lives better, easier, even to learn, right? So I think that, you know, let's say that you have a topic that you really want to learn about, and, you know, maybe you want to find just this niche information. You could use this tool to create a fake podcast. And sometimes I think that's a little bit easier to listen to information versus, you know, reading, or maybe it's easier if you're driving or something. But I think it's really cool. So let me show you some of the other things from just 2 words that I gave it, which was SpaceX Starship. So you can see that on the left here, okay, so you can see on the left that it pulled like 10 sources to get its information. Now, you could add sources, you could add a YouTube video, you could add a slideshow, you can add all sorts of stuff, but essentially you also could just not add anything, and it can pull from the internet. And so that's pretty cool, because you can do things like, for example, create a study guide, create a mind map, we'll do an FAQ, we'll do a briefing doc, we'll do a timeline, and, you know, just let it generate in the background. So let's take a look at this. So Starship orbital refueling for lunar missions. Okay, reason for refueling, comparison with Apollo missions, Starship refueling strategy. So here's like a little Starship FAQ that it made. Why does Starship require multiple refueling missions in Earth orbit for lunar or Martian travel, unlike previous missions like Apollo? What are the key advantages of Starship's fully reusable design and in-orbit refueling strategy? So it just makes some questions. I mean, that's pretty cool to do. Let's see what else it has here. So here's a timeline. I don't know how to get... So for example, if you wanted to do a study guide, well, you don't have to. It'll do it for you. So here's the study guide for Starship and lunar missions. Overview of Starship and its capabilities, the role of refueling for lunar and interplanetary missions. It goes on, and it even has a little, you know, definition section here, glossary of key terms. So ablative a material designed to protect a spacecraft from high temperatures during atmospheric entry by vaporizing and carrying heat away. So that I think is really cool. here's a timeline of Starship. So 2002, SpaceX was founded. November 2005, Elon Musk first mentions a high-capacity rocket concept, BFR, big effing rocket. And, you know, we go on to see some of the test flights all the way up until, well, it actually goes even longer than I thought it would go. So it goes to the Flight 9, which was, geez, it was back in May. It feels so long ago already. So it goes to Flight 9, and then it will even, you know, have some smaller details like public comment period open for the draft EIS for Starship Super Heavy operations at Cape Canaveral Space Force. Geez, I'm talking too fast. My point being with all of this is that, you know, this might be a very helpful tool for you. So I just wanted to let you know about it. It's one of the lesser known, I think, AI tools out there. It's great for research, particularly for research. And who knows, it could create all of these new podcasts that either threaten our jobs as creators, or maybe you just create your own podcast. And, you know, it's definitely a little bit unsettling what's happening, but I wanted to get your opinion on it. What did you think about the AI-generated podcast? Or would you still watch Ellie? Would you still choose the human over the machine? So at the end of the day, I'm choosing to collaborate with AI, not compete with it. And yeah, I just want to know like your general thoughts because I feel like so much is happening and things are changing so quickly. And you know, I almost feel like it's something that we should all study, you know, to stay ahead or just to stay up to date. So is this something that you're trying to pretend isn't happening, or are you learning to embrace it and maybe even wanting to study it? I've been trying to get more involved with it, to use it more, to understand, you know, how it's already changing my life and just our lives in general. Some countries are already making it mandatory to study, you know, AI education. For example, China will require all primary and secondary school students to receive at least 8 hours of AI education per year, which I'm sure will be very helpful. So it's just a very crazy time to be alive. It's a little bit unsettling. I think that people tend to gravitate to, you know, worst case scenarios and how it's portrayed in movies and TV shows and all the ways that it can be hurtful. But I kind of think of it as a friend, as someone to, you know, talk to you at any time for free, at least with ChatGPT. You know, it can help you with ideas. But I think that there is a gray area. You don't want to over rely on it and, you know, have it take away from your own human experience and have it degrade your own critical thinking. So it's, I think it can definitely be overused, but for now, it seems to be pretty helpful, and I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about it. So let me know in the comments if this is something that excites you, intrigues you, or scares the living crap out of you. So thanks for watching this video. Hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it 2 thumbs up. Don't replace me, and I'll see you in the next one.